All right. So yeah, I have Simple Liker up and ready to look at. Um, if there are particular things in here we want to dig into, all for it. If there are other things like the dog CEO stuff we want to look at as well, if we have time after that, I'm happy to look at whatever folks are getting stuck on right now. So, um, who no, what am I? Has anyone completed Simple Liker to their own satisfaction? Any thumbs up there?
Honestly, I got stuck at the first line of mimic server call. So that it threw me. That's from there I was just like, I'm done. I'm out. Peace out. Nope.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's just walk through it a little bit first then and talk about what it looks like here. Let me share screen while we're here. Cool. Over. And great. Great. Thanks, Google. Um, cool. Let's take a look at the readme. So this is the Simple Liker app. I'm gonna look at it in preview mode. Nope. Look at it in preview mode. There we go. Simple Liker app. Great. So we're going to play with some of the stuff they got us here. We're going to hook up some event listeners. We're going to update DOM based on those the response from this mocked up server. This mocked up server has been giving people a lot of trouble forever, I think. So we'll take a look at exactly what is going on there as well. Um, so basically we have, and this threw me when I was trying to help someone earlier. This is a static page right now. It's not rendering these from data, I don't think. So we should only need to make one change to the HTML. Hey, come back. So what we're going to do, we're going to do all our coding over here in the main.js file. And here are some things we want to do. We want to, well, let's step through these and one at a time. How about that? Because there's a lot of them. Let me close this one out. And cool. So first off, I want to take a look at our main.js here. So this here is something that has given folks trouble. So normally in an app like this, we'd be making a regular old fetch call, a get to a server, get some data, and do stuff with that data. We don't have that here for whatever reason they decided to do that. We're mocking up a fake server. So what it is, what it is doing, if we want to pick through this code, it is like there's no reason for it to take anything at all because it's just doing a fake thing. What it's doing is it is creating just an empty promise and then waiting for a little bit of time. It might send a failure or it might resolve cleanly, but it'll send back some stuff basically. Um, Great. So this is going to send us back. Yeah, it worked, or yeah, it didn't. And it's not really doing anything else. One of the things that really hung people up is that it's not sending back an HTTP response object. So we're not doing the res to res JSON because that's not what it's doing. All it's doing is literally just making a fake promise, or it's making a real promise. It's making a promise and then randomly deciding whether to accept it or reject it. Pretend that there is a server failure or a server success. Kimberly, yeah.
Just because I want to confirm what I'm reading here and what I know about math.random, is that saying that there's a 20% chance of failure?
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, 100% or 20%, I guess. And so let's look at the HTML here. We got some HTML here. Look at this. And the HTML is basically just a list of of article elements that have headers and paragraphs and footers with all that information on it. So I'm just going to fire this up so we can see what it looks like in a browser. And of course, we're not looking at it in a browser over here. Browser here, right? Cool. So this is the static stuff. This is not getting loaded from a server. This is just the static stuff that is getting loaded up. And our first task here, according to the README, is to add a hidden class to the error modal in the HTML. So all this is doing is we're going to add a class to the HTML in this modal here. We're going to add a class equals hidden. Cool. We could do that with JavaScript if we wanted to select that item and play with the class list. There's no reason to do that. So here is our page. When we reload it, the error thing doesn't come up. Fantastic. In fact, let me get this over here so we can just read it nicely as well. Here. Great. So here's the thing. Here's the main thing. So we want to simulate when a user clicks on a heart. We want to simulate it liking or unliking these messages. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do this fake server call. It's not doing an actual server call. It's not doing a fetch request. It's creating a promise and then returning back, we did it or we didn't do it. We can catch it. We can then it. So if it fails, it's going to do a catch. If it succeeds, it's going to do a then. We can show the error when the thing comes back bad. We can put the message up there and we can hide it after that. Otherwise, we want to flip the heart and turn the heart red. Great. And then when it does a full heart, we're going to do the other way around. Apparently, we're not doing the server request for that, so that's fine. Great. Yeah. Oh, and this is the important part. There's a couple different strategies when we're working with server stuff. And you may see a reference to optimistic rendering in the material sometimes. I don't know if they still have that in there. Basically, there's a couple ways we can update our page when we're making server requests. We can optimistically render, and that means that we're going to assume that everything's working on the server side, and we're going to update the page accordingly before the request comes back, just to make that UI or the UX a little bit faster. And then when it comes back right or wrong, then we update it for real. Or we can do, and I think this is the practice that you're going to see in most places, just regular rendering, I guess, where we wait for the response before updating it on the page. And we might show a spinner or some sort of waiting thing. I don't think we do that here in this particular exercise. So we're going to do the regular old rendering. So we're not going to change anything on the page until after the response comes back. So let's take this step by step. So first, there are some unspoken instructions here, right? When a user clicks on an empty heart. To do that sentence, we need to find all the empty hearts, or all the hearts, I guess. We need to find the hearts. We need to do something when they get clicked. So that's probably adding an event listener. And then we need to call a function on it. So let's look at that part first. And I'm going to kind of just go. If you have questions or want me to stop at any time, raise a hand and we can stop and talk about anything y'all like at any time. So first off, here's our main JS, just to make sure we got everything working. Console cat that and see if we get some stuff. I'm going to move this back over here because I like it up top better. How do I move it? Nope, that's not what I wanted. Move it. Move it up. Nope. No. No, I want to move it, man. Okay, I'll live it. Cool. So we're getting the right file. I know I moved it down here. I know I can move it back up. That's just making it mobile. Where's these were? Yeah, I'll make it easy.
What are you trying to do?
I'll try to move it over there. Great. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So it is hitting the JavaScript file. So we know that we're going to code and it's going to work, or it's going to do something anyway. So the first thing we want to do is select all of those empty hearts. So let's look at what we got here. Here are, and so this is a heart. This is what Unicode looks like. Unicode is a double byte specification for international characters and all the fun emojis and whatnot. And this is what it looks like on the page. You give it a and #x and then Unicode code for the thing. In our case, that thing is these hearts. You can also just put Unicode directly in the page, like you can copy paste the thing and it does exactly the same thing. But here we are. So all of the hearts have this class like glyph. So we want to select everything that has that class on it. And so we can fiddle with what's inside and attach listeners and whatnot. So when the page loads up, let's select, do a selector and get all of the stuff that has that class on it. So I'm going to do a document query select tor all. I'm going to look for dot, that's the class that, and I'm going to need to assign it to a variable. Hearts, heart elements. I'm just going to call it hearts for now. Hearts. And I'm just going to console log out the hearts to make sure that I get what I think I get. Nope, that's the wrong one. Don't look at my terrible calendar. Great. So here are all of our hearts. And these are all the spans that have the hearts in them. You can see them light up. And so these are just the things with the hearts. Great. So looks like we can add our event listeners directly to these. Great. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it in a variable just for clarity. We could also just do a add event listener or for each add event listener here, but I'm going to type in the right line. I'm going to do a for each here. I think for each works. Does for each work on a node list? I don't think it does. Node lists look like arrays, but they're not arrays. Item entries for each. Oh yeah, it has a for each. Great. What's the one that doesn't? One of them doesn't. I think maybe it's when you do the select by class names. But yeah, node list works. Great. We'll use node list for each. And so I'm going to say I'm going to call it a span because that's what it is. For each one of these, I'm going to add an event listener. And we're going to be looking for clicks. And I'm just going to say handle click, handle heart click. And it's going to pass in it's not going to pass in the event. Don't want to call it there. Cool. So we are just saying for each one of these hearts that we've selected, we are going to we're going to add an event listener to it, and anytime it's clicked, we're going to call that function. Cool. Great. Let's define that function. So we're going to take an event or an E. I'm just going to, again, console log out the target of the event. So the target, again, is when you do something that causes an event and you catch that event with an event handler or listener, it's going to pass the event itself to that function. So when I click on one of these spans, It's going to call handle hard click. It's going to pass the event to that listener, and we can find out what we clicked on, what threw that event, by looking at the target. And so that should give us the thing that we clicked on. So if we click on Brian Flatiron, that gives us a class. If we hover over it, it should show us that. Same over here. Great. So we got the right thing. We're going to do stuff to it now. So what do we have to do to it? So when a user clicks on an empty heart, done. We're going to invoke Mimic server. Or before I move on, any questions about how to select these, how to add event listeners, how to handle those listeners? Has that anyone not gotten this far? Anyone have questions about why we're doing it this way, or if you did it a different way?
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you just expand on adding event.target? I kind of
Yeah.
forgot. Mhm.
Yeah, so we have so we're looking at our spans. So we have a span that has a heart in it. When we click on that heart, when we click on the hearts over here, when we click on it here, that is going to cause a click event on that heart, on that span. And so we're adding a listener to that span and says, cool, whenever you get a click event, let me know. I'm going to give you this function, call that function when you get clicked on, and pass the event to that function. So we're going to define that function. We're going to take the event, and the events are just objects. So they're just things in JavaScript, and they have a attribute on them, a property called target. And the target on the event is the thing that threw the event. So that would be the thing that we clicked on. So if we click on a span with a heart in it, that's going to throw in a click event. We're going to catch that click event and do something with it. And we can look at the event and see what we got, what clicked on, and that's the target. Does that help out a little bit?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, it is tricky. Again, not intuitive. It takes a little while to get used to. David, what's up?
Yeah, in the beginning, when you use the query selector all,
Mhm.
can you also use the get element by class as
Yep.
well?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's kind of counterintuitive because you said earlier on in a lecture that normally you'd want to use an ID for selecting things in JavaScript.
Yeah. And this is one of the instances where using a class selector is what we need to do, because we have a static page with a bunch of stuff on it that all we want to do stuff to every instance that has that class, and we can't put IDs on them because IDs are unique. So we have to use a class selector on here. In practice, we would be generating these as well and adding the listeners as we created them. So we wouldn't be selecting a class here, but that's what we have to do here. So that's what we do there. Azani, yeah.
Hey, so quick, just confirming question here. On line 10,
Mhm.
the reason that we're choosing console log as like the functionality of that is just to sort of like verify that it's happening. But in sort of the actual assignment, the thing is when we click the heart, we want it to like fill and turn red.
Yep, and that's exactly where we're going next. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So our first step is just to make sure did we are we getting the thing that we clicked on, just to make sure that everything is cool up to this point.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's start doing that. So the first thing I wanted to do was call this function, mimic server call. Cool. And we're just calling it. Great. And we can even, if we console log out the result of this, we can see that parentheses have to face the right way. We can see that it is a promise. So it is returning a promise. We are not going to get our response object out of it. I wish I wish this was different, but it's not. So we're just getting a promise back of it. So let's, since we're getting a promise, let's do a .then on it. And in fact, we're going to have a .catch too. So let's do, you know what, let's just console log the stuff that we're getting back. Let's console log the stuff we're getting back from the then. Let's console error the stuff that we're getting back from the error. So again, when we get a promise, promises have a .then on them. .then we always have to pass a function to that .then, and that's telling the promise when it comes back good, run this function for us. Same with catch. Catch is just a method on the promise that says, hey, take this function, and if it comes back bad, run this function and pass the error to it. So let's see what that looks like over here. Like we said, we got about a 20% chance of getting an error. So we click, hey, pretend remote server. So this is what we're getting back. This is what we're getting back. We're getting back these strings as the response. And maybe we'll get an error. There we go. Random server error. Try again. Great. So these are the things that the promise is returning. It's not returning a response object. It's not even returning JSON. It's just returning a string, which is fine. A promise is just a promise. It can do whatever it wants. So the important part here is not what we're getting back, but that we're getting back an error or a not error, proper response. So let's see. So we don't need to worry about what we're actually getting back at all. We just need to worry about what we're doing when it does come back. So anyone have any questions about the Mimic server call stuff? Because it is definitely, it's not the same as the stuff we've been doing before. It is definitely takes a second to figure out what's happening. Yeah, Azani.
Yeah, quick thing too. So in this case, because they're giving us this function, kind of like we're just doing what they're saying in the context of this,
Yep.
But usually we would have to take, or depending on what the sort of command is, we would take the response, and the then would be for the purpose of doing something with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a fetch is going to return as a promise that gets us a HTTP response object, and we need to run the .json thing on that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hate
Kimberly, yeah.
it when I mute myself. So going on our last conversation from the office hours, in the .then and the .catch in the parentheses, at that point, I can just call a function there and then write the functions outside of that, right?
Yep. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do.
Thank you. You just helped me understand. Breakthrough moment.
Yeah, you bet. Cool. Yeah, let's take a look at what is happening over here. Cool. So yeah, and again, catch and then take just functions. So we can pass built-in functions like console log, or we can write our own functions to do what we want. And in fact, let's do exactly that. So let's say handle function, handle success, and let's make a function. Cool. And I'm just gonna here console log error, and here we're gonna console log. And then we're gonna just throw those functions in here. Handle success. So now when we make this fake server call and it comes back, if it comes back correct, we're going to call this function. If it comes back bad, we're going to call the handle error function. And we can kind of see how that works here. All good, all good, all good, all good, all good, all good. Aha, error, all good, all good, all good. Great. So now, so we're going to need one more piece of information here, and that piece of information is the thing we clicked on. And if we do a function in here, we're going to have that event already available to us. I'm going to have to change this a little bit so we can pass the event into our handle success. So right now, we're just passing in the function itself, and it is calling with whatever that server comes back. So it's calling the function with this, which doesn't do us any good. So instead of calling the function with what it gets back, I'm just going to write a little anonymous arrow function here that calls handle success with the, you know what, I'm just going to pass in the target right here. So now this is a function. This is the function that we're passing into the then. And that function says, when you come back with a success, run this function. And the only thing this function is going to do is run handle success. And we're going to pass in the target of the event here to handle success. So we need to catch it here. And we can console log it out. So again, we're passing a function to then. The only thing that function is doing is running and calling our function with the target of the event, which is the thing that sent the event, which is the thing that we clicked on. So in our function, we're going to grab that target and we're going to do something with it. So let's make sure everything I said is true. Yeah, there's a thing, give us an error, there we go. Great. So that works the way we expect. Eileen, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm like understanding as you're talking through it, but I guess if you could explain just again why you can't just put handle success in the dot then.
Yeah, so we can, right? We can put handle success here.
Or sorry, so you're only doing this because you need to use the target in the handle success function.
Yeah, so if
okay, so that's not like to get the function to work, it's just so that you pass through.
It's just so we're getting the thing that we
want. Okay, got it. Thanks.
So if we have it like this, if we're just passing handle success, what do we expect console log to say? Anyone?
It's gonna return the all good cap and then give you the span.
Close, because we're calling it target, right? The computer doesn't care what we call it. So we're saying whatever gets passed into here, we're going to console log it. So if we don't call it the other way, what's going to get passed into here?
Oh, would it be like a window or like some like global thing?
Nope.
Or am I completely off? Okay.
Is it the resolve down below from the Mimic server, the pretend remote server? I guess I'm not understanding. Yep.
Yep, exactly. So this is what the promise is responding with. So if we just say, cool, call handle success and send us the thing that you get back, it's going to do exactly that. And whether we call it target or span or heart or anything, the computer does not care. You can call it sandwich and it's going to do the same thing. So what we need to do is do our little arrow function. So we're saying, when you come back, I don't care what you're responding with at all. All I'm doing is calling my function with the target of the thing that got clicked. And again, not intuitive. This is definitely like something that you eventually figure out.
Okay, really randomly stupid question, but you've got on line 10, handle success e.target. And then on line 14, you've got handle success target.
Yep.
If you change that target to sandwich, did you have to change line 10 to sandwich?
Yep. Because
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this target is coming off of our event.
Right.
Yeah. So when the event gets sent up, it's getting caught here, and we're saying, hey, event that the thing that got event like your click event, what clicked on you? Who hurt you? And what we call it in here doesn't matter because that's just a function.
Sorry, I jumped in before you called on me. So just to confirm, this is about the scope of the function, right?
Yeah. So we're calling it target here because I thought it was a good name. We can call it heart span. It's probably a better, because who knows where we're getting it from, right? So this is just the heart span. And so heart span only exists inside that function. This E only exists inside this function here. So we're just saying, hey, event, give us your target, pass it into there, and then we're all good there.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I understand now.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be anything. Yeah. Again, the JavaScript does not care. JavaScript cannot care what your variable is called. And I think the thing that is confusing is because there are built-in things, right? There's built-in things like target. That has to be target because events have targets. If we look at, MDN events, it's going to have a target on it that's built into the events. So we have to call it that. But when we're making our own thing, like JavaScript literally can't parse that. It could be anything name-wise. The contents clearly matter to JavaScript, but what it's named, the symbol that we're seeing is only for us. JavaScript cannot care about that. Yeah. And again, like this, like technically, it didn't need to be called target, right? It's just whoever, this is just JavaScript 2, or C, depending on at what level it's implemented. Like someone decided when they made up JavaScript, we're going to have these things called events, and events are going to have these things called targets. They could have chosen something else, and we would have to use that name. But it's all just made up. So someone made it up at some point, and now we're stuck with it. It's a pretty good name still. So yeah, for sure. Cool. Any other questions about stuff up to this point before we start messing with the DOM? Why does it error when clicking multiple times? Great question. So when we are doing this mimic server call, we can look at what's happening here. So function mimic call, it's, let's break it up a little bit. At the root of it, it's returning a promise. So first off, we know this function returns a promise. So you could write your own promise library in a dozen lines and it would be fine. Basically, a promise is an object. You can give it a function that says that takes two things as arguments, and those are things to do when it succeeds or rejects it. And so this one is saying, great, when you return this promise, we're going to run a timeout and we're going to wait a little bit, not too long. And then we're going to just pick randomly. So it's going to pick a random number between 0 and 1. If that number is less than 0.2, so 1/5 of the time, it's going to reject it with an error. Otherwise, it's going to resolve it. There's no actual error or anything. All it's doing is simulating, hey, there's a server out there that may or may not be up or may or may not be responding correctly. So this is purely just a simulation of an error. There's no actual error. There's no actual server communication happening at all. It's literally just a function that's choosing to respond good or bad. Yeah. And again, I don't think it's explained that well. It's a little bit confusing. So la-di-da. Great. So where did we leave off here? We left off with clicking on stuff and getting the span. Cool. Let's go back to our instructions. So when it returns a failure response, let's do that. So we're doing the catch. Great, we did that, fine. We're going to display the error modal by removing the .hidden class. Cool. So, and we're going to display the message in the modal. Fantastic. So our error modal is up here. Cool. It's got an ID of modal. Fantastic. So I'm going to do all the work down here in handle error. So I'm going to get that element. by ID, their document. And the ID was modal. And so I need to remove the hidden class on that thing. And I know that I'm going to be using it more than once because I have to put it back later. So I'm actually going to put it up top here. I'm going to say const modal equals that. Great. So here I want to say modal. I want to remove that hidden class. So it could have a dozen classes on it. I don't know. We right now it only has one class on it, but I'm just going to remove that class from the class list. So class list is a list that has all the classes on that element in it. And it gives us a couple ways to play with it. And we can just say remove. And so I need to give it the class remove, and that was hidden, right? Hidden. Right, let's see if that does it. Get an error, Hey, there it is. Great. So we removed the hidden class from that error. And we want to set the text of that class to the error that happened. So Azani, yeah.
Hey, if we wanted to remove the hidden from that element without using class list, isn't there like a class notation we could use, like modal.remove .hidden, or am I off?
That's the, are you talking about like modal style or modal? I think you can just set the class name, but we don't know. You know, we could say class name equals nothing. But if there are other classes on there, it might screw things up. So class list is usually the best practice to do there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna say modal message. Boom. Great. So I'm grabbing the modal message by ID here. And so I'm going to, like it says, oh, and I do need the error message, don't I? So I'm going to need to do the same thing here. So I do care what's coming back. So I'm going to need to call a little function here that's saying, oh, I guess handle error is getting that message. So message is getting it passed from the promise, right? And so I can say modal message text content equals the message. Let's see if that does what we think. There we go. Random server error, try again. So again, when the promise fails, it's going to call catch and it's going to pass whatever it got back to that function that we pass, that we give catch. So when we write our function, we can give it a parameter that's going to catch whatever the promise gives us. And so that's going to be the message from down here. And so we can use that. Holly, yeah.
Hey, so mine, I'm following along with this. Mine appears to be giving me the error message only when the handle success is going through, because I'm getting the all good and then I'm getting the error at the same time. Everything looks the same as yours. I don't know if that's also happening. I don't know.
So when it's calling the error, whether it's coming back with a success or not?
It was like specifically when it's the success.
Okay, so is the handle error in the .then or in the catch?
I did two .thens. Thank you.
There you go. Awesome. Other questions? Great. Let's do this last bit. Hide the modal after 3 seconds and add the hidden class back. Great. So I'm just going to do a set timeout. And so set timeout takes a little function back first, and then a a milliseconds for how long to do. So I'm just going to do a quick little function here that says modal class lists add hidden. And in fact, I'm going to do this. Like that. Just in case some designer decides to get spunky on me in a later date. Whoops. So since I'm using a string more than once, I'm throwing it in a constant. So if it does change at some point in the future, I can just change it in one place. And in fact, if this was like not as clearly named as hidden, making it a constant here definitely tells me like, oh, remove the hidden class, add the hidden class. So if it was something like bingo, I don't have to change the CSS. I can just say like, cool, hidden class is bingo. I'm gonna be able to read this now and see what happens. Cool. So that little function is adding the class back. I need to give it the time. It's gonna be 3000. So set timeout is a built-in function. Actually lives on document, I think. Yep. And so set timeout takes a function. So here's our function and a time. So 3000 milliseconds, 3 seconds. Our function is just running and saying, hey, when the time is up, add that hidden class back to the, well, let's see if it works. All good, all good, all good, all good, all good. There we go. Error 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. That does what we want, I think. Great. Yeah, that is the error part. Cool. Questions on the error part? Megan, yeah.
Yeah, I'm following along in my code and I added that modal message text content equals message. And oh, wait, I think I see what I did. You have it as a separate function and you're just calling that function. Got it. I was just trying to add it to my catch, so it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Never mind. Thank you.
I make this look easy because I've been doing it a very, very long time. Spend 10,000 hours programming, and it too will be easy. Yeah. Cool. Other questions about handling the error, or anyone want me to talk through it one more time?
Would you mind walking through it one more time? I
Absolutely.
just finished writing it out.
Yeah. Cool. So when we click on one of the hearts, we're going to mimic the server call. When we get an error, we're calling the function handle error. And because the promise is returning the string here, the promise is going to pass that string to our function when it calls it. So here's our function, handle error. We're going to take that message that it's sending us, whatever it is, and we're going to hang on to that. The first thing we need to do is grab the modal. So we're grabbing the modal up here. We're doing document select by ID. We're looking at the class list of the modal, and we're removing our hidden class, which we've said is hidden up here. We are setting a timeout so that after 3000 milliseconds, it's going to run this little function for us. And all that function is doing is saying, go to the modal, go to the class list, add that hidden class back on. And then the last thing we're doing is going to the modal message. So we're selecting the modal message from the HTML by ID here. And we're setting the text content of that to the message. And that is, again, the message that the promise passed to this function when we caught it. And that's whatever comes back from the promise. Any part of that you'd like me to talk about in more detail?
No, that looks, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So let's look at the good part. Let's look at when the server returns a success status. We're going to change the heart to a full heart, and we're going to add the activated heart class to make it red. Great. This is the part that makes me cringe a little bit because we are directly messing with the HTML, but that's what's going to happen. So we are getting the heart span in our handle success. So when the server comes back, we're going to call this function. That function is calling a handle success and passing it the target. So we have our span. So we have constants for empty heart and full heart up here. All they are strings that have an empty heart and a full heart in them. So for starters, we can just change the heart to a full heart, and that's just text. So we have our span. So we can set the text content to the full heart. And we can add this class to it, activated heart. That should be a string. Cool. Let me show you what it looks like without that first. So all we're doing is looking at the span and setting it to that full heart character there. Boom, there it is. And so when we add that class, it should turn red. Reload. Boop, there it is. And it's just going to do the same thing over and over again if we click it more. Unless we get an error. Stupid server. There we go. Cool. That felt a little bit too easy. So what question do we have about that part? Any confusion about how we're getting the span, how we're setting it?
Where do we see activated heart on here?
Say that again.
Where did we see activated heart?
Oh, it
was in the instructions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's why. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can look at the CSS here too and see. Oh, there's the activated heart, color red. And that's just anything that gets activated heart on is going to turn red. Cool. Well, let's talk about the second part then. Yeah, cool. So this is the last part. When we click on a full heart, change the heart back to an empty heart and remove that activated heart class. So there are a couple things we can do. We can follow it to the letter, or we can do what feels right. I'm going to talk about following it to the letter first. So it's just saying when you click a full heart, change it. And I don't think, yeah, so these kind of contradict each other. And this is something that will happen in real life. You'll get specs and they won't make any sense. And the proper thing to do is go back to the person who sent you those specs and say, hey, I'm confused. This part says this part says this. Which one do you want to do? Because right now it just says when you click on a full heart, change it to empty and turn it off of red. It doesn't say to make a server call. It doesn't say to wait for success, any of that. But down here, it says only do that when you get a server request response. So if we wanted to follow this part to the letter, you can actually add a second event listener on here and have it check to see if it is a full heart. You could also do that in your handle heart click. That's fine. I am not going to do that. I'm going to do it the way that I think would be reasonable. So it seems like when you click on a full heart, it's going to make a server request. And if it comes back, that's when I'm going to change it. So I'm only going to change this in handle success. So in handle success, I just need to, so right now I'm just setting it to full heart no matter what. So what I would actually like to do is see if it's already a full heart, then change it to empty heart, or vice versa. If it's already an empty heart, set it to full heart. fact, I think I'm going to do it that way. So no matter what in this function, I'm going to look at the text content of the heart span with an if. So if the text content is an empty heart, so which it will be the first time we click on it. So if the heart span equals an empty heart, then we're going to do this stuff. Then we're going to make it a full heart and add the activated heart. Otherwise, if it's not an empty heart, if it's not an empty heart, then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to set it to an empty heart, and we're going to remove it. So again, anytime it comes back with a success, we're going to look at what's in that span. If what is in that span is an empty heart, which is what we expect, we're going to set it to full heart, and we're going to turn it red. If it's anything else, we're going to set it back to an empty heart, and we're going to turn it black again. I'm curious because I don't know if this is going to exactly match the Unicode that's in there. So we'll see what happens. Hey, that works. Great. Click again, and it goes away. And we know that it is, so I can actually change the amount of time for this to come back. So make it a full second. So I know that these are only changing when the server comes back. So I can click and wait a second, and it turns red. I can click, wait a second, and it turns back. So both of those are only happening when the fake server comes back. And all we're doing is looking to see what's there already and changing it to the other thing. This is not how I would do it in a real application. In a real application, I would have the data sitting somewhere and render stuff out depending on what it is. But this is what we have to work with. So this is the way it works. Yeah, Kimberly.
I need to take a step back to line 17, please. Or line, actually not line 17, line 14, please.
This one?
Yep. Explain to me why you put an anonymous arrow function in there for the e.target. Is that because you're actually clicking on the heart and e.target is the heart?
Yeah, so when we,
Okay.
we're grabbing the heart here.
Uh-huh.
When, so we're adding the event listener to that span. When it gets clicked, we're going to call this function, and that function is getting the event. So when the fake server call comes back, then is taking a function. And if we just pass it handle success, it's going to pass into this function here on line 14, whatever came back from the promise. And that's going to be this message here.
Okay.
So in that case, we lose which thing got clicked on. And that's important to us because we need to change it.
Okay. 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 So that's basically designating which heart it's picking.
Yeah. So here we're making our own little
Okay.
function. We're passing an anonymous function to the dot then that says, hey, when you come back successfully, run this function. And the only thing this function is doing is calling handle success and passing the target of the event into it. And here's
Okay.
where we're catching it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, and this is where it gets all noodly. So it's just like untangling all the yarn.
I'm in ramen soup, so yeah.
Great. Yeah, and it's so difficult because as human beings, we want to kind of just like look at the whole thing in context and kind of assign meaning to things that may not be what they are. And so one of the skills we train as programmers is to just like laser focus in on, okay, I know that dot then takes a function and I'm not passing it handle success. I'm passing it a function that calls handle success and passes it something. What's that something? Okay, it's the target on E. E is the event. Where is that coming from? Okay, that's coming from that, and just like laser focusing on exactly what it is and being like, oh, it's this. It's calling the span. I don't know, and like just getting like really precise and really dialed into exactly what's happening in, and that is not what human brains do naturally. So it's definitely a skill to train, and it's hard. It's hard. It takes a while. Did we have another question? Was it a David?
Yeah, I just Google answered it for me. Thank you very much.
What was the question?
What was the question? Oh, everything. I couldn't get the heart to turn off, and I couldn't figure out why, but I wasn't getting any errors. And then I realized I had set heartspan.text content to equals empty heart.
Mhm.
I had used the variable assignment
Uh-huh.
operator instead of the
There.
yeah.
Yep. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to do.
Yeah, I was moving too fast. So
Yeah. And again, not natural. Depending on whether you're just a normal person or whether you're a mathematician, like these symbols mean different things in different contexts. That's really difficult to get used to it. But you do eventually. It's just a matter of repetition. Great. We're up on time. I think we completed everything. What other questions do we have before we wrap this up? Yeah, David.
Yeah, on the for each, and then your span arrow function span, you're just calling it span because you're referring to the span in the HTML
Yeah.
text.
Yeah. And this is another could be anything.
Could be anything. Yeah.
'Cause we're making this anonymous function here. This whole thing is a function that we are creating.
Yeah.
This is the parameter going into it. So we can call it whatever we want. I'm just calling it span because I know that we are looking at each span in that selection.
Got it.
Could call it element, could call it heart, could call it, whatever you like. Any other questions? Right on. Cool. Yeah, so hopefully this clarified some stuff. If it made it more confusing, my apologies. Yeah, so again, this is another great one to build and burn, just to get that like dial in how to manipulate stuff like that. Yeah, great. Thanks for hanging out. I'll post this video up in the usual places and post it in the channel when it is up. And otherwise, have a good lunch, and I'll see you all at Stand Down.